name's Alex Pope. I'm the owner of Local Pig, and today we are with the Kansas Beef Council making a barbecue bacon-wrapped meatloaf. So this recipe is a favorite at my house, and it's really a great way to take a pound of ground beef to the next level. This is a great weeknight recipe, comes together in about 15 minutes, and can really sit over the whole day if you want to prep it in the morning. One of the great things I like about this is we have been able to make it gluten-free using some tortilla chips instead of breadcrumbs. Everybody loves tortilla chips, and one of the problems I have is all the stuff at the bottom of the bag, which is not a good chip. So for this recipe, we are going to start with getting some chips. If you have them at the bottom of the bag, that's great. If you don't, we're going to make some quick crumb tortilla chips. So start with a Ziploc bag. Get most of the air out, but you don't want to get it all out. And we're going to crush these up. We want them crushed up so they can bind up some of the fat that comes out of your barbecue bacon-wrapped meatloaf, but not so big that you're tasting crunches of tortilla chips. So you see a big amount of tortilla chips can come down to a small amount pretty quickly, okay? If you prefer to use breadcrumbs, certainly replace breadcrumbs with tortilla chips in this recipe. But if you're after a gluten-free option, tortilla chips is a great way to go. So now that we've crumbed these, we are gonna get started with the rest of it. We've got ground beef. I prefer 80-20. We use a chuck blend at the shop, but if you like 90-10, feel free. Although we're wrapping this in bacon, so don't be too worried about your fat content. We're gonna start with a ground beef and get it broken up a little bit. Our next step is going to be barbecue sauce. Of course, we're gonna be using Kansas City style, which is a little bit sweeter and a little bit less acidic. Okay, we've got half cup of sauce here. Okay, don't be afraid to get in there. You don't want to leave any in there. Okay, set that to the side. We're going to take 1 egg. Egg's a classic binder in your meatloaf. Okay. And a little bit of salt, teaspoon of sea salt. Feel free to use any salt you can get your hands on. Okay, this is going to be wrapped in bacon. Don't worry about the salt too much. And we've got our tortilla chips next. So we're going to get in with our hands, mix this up. You do want to break up the chunks of beef. We're looking to make a uniform, consistent product. So after we've started mixing, we're going to get our tortilla chips in next and get another little mix. So you see the protein is starting to come together from the salt and the egg. And your ground beef is now becoming more of a cohesive mass, which is going to be important because we are going to use this like a true loaf. We're not going to do this in a pan. We're going to do this in bacon. So you do want to mix a little more than you would normally mix. And mixing the beef with the salt brings out a couple of proteins and gets it nice and sticky. And that's what we're after. So you see we're now getting closer to a sticky mass, which is close. Going to finish our seasonings with a little bit of onion flakes. Okay. And that's going to be our base. So now we've got our mix, and now we're going to get ready to bacon wrap. So if your beef came wrapped in butcher paper, you can go ahead and use that. If it didn't, get yourself some wax paper. You just want a stiff, sturdy folding material. Plastic wrap would even work if you needed to. But you're looking for about a half pound of bacon, 8 to 10 pieces. So shingling the bacon is the name we use for it. And what we're doing is overlapping about 25% of one slice onto the next slice in order to keep it together as it cooks. So if you look, this piece is overlapping about a pinky's width on that one. And it's shingled in one direction. So we've got our half pound, 8 to 10 slices of bacon laid out, shingled in a uniform edge. So this is our box that we're gonna wrap in. We've got our meatloaf, And that's gonna go right in the middle. And this is a bit freeform, so turn your creativity button on and get this into loaf shape. And we do want it centered. You'll see it is just right in the middle, right in the center. And instead of trying to grab the bacon, we're actually going to grab the paper. That's why it's important that this is stiff. So we're going to wrap up and peel back. Okay, and your bacon ought to stick pretty well. Grab the middle again, flip one more time, grab the edges, and just give that a little squeeze. Pull that out, pull that up, and now you'll see the edges we want on the bottom. So we're gonna take this and book this onto a sheet tray. Don't worry about greasing this. If this is bacon, you don't need to grease it. Put it on. And it is ready at this point to go into the oven, or it's ready to go into the fridge. If you prefer to do this in the morning, which I do sometimes while you get ready, the kids ready, put that in and it's ready to go in the oven, 400 degrees. So when you're making meatloaf, a lot of the problem is you don't have enough fat and you don't have enough binder. The point of meatloaf is not to be a burger. The point is to use up some parts of the animal that have a little more fat, and you want to use that fat to add richness to your meatloaf. And you want the breadcrumb is your traditional binder, egg is another binder. In this case, we're doing egg and tortilla chip. But that's going to trap some of the fat. Instead of letting it leak out, it's trapped, and you're making a delicious, rich meatloaf. So one of the problems you might have with meatloaf is you're using excessively lean beef. That's why I like to do 80-20. Make sure you do have a lot of binder in there. If you saw the volume of chip to beef, it probably looked a little large. I like to have a little extra binder in there. It's not supposed to be some sort of pure beef log. It is a meatloaf. And then seasoning is another place that people screw up their meatloafs. Don't be afraid of salt when you're making these things. It really helps to bind and flavor meatloafs. A little bit of sugar, a little bit of acid, a good bit of fat leads any dish to being excellent, but a meatloaf really helps it out. So a digital thermometer is my best friend in the kitchen. I use these at home every single time because you really do need to know the internal temperatures, and it is not sufficient to just poke at stuff. I'm a professional chef and I still don't do that. So get yourself a digital thermometer and get your ground beef up to 160. 160 is the degree you need to cook your ground beef to in order for it to be safe, and same goes for this meatloaf. So when it comes out, even following the exact recipe, it might not be quite up to temp because ovens vary in cooking time, convections, your oven might not be dialed in correctly. So ensure you're doing it correctly by using a thermometer every time.